I'm very excited to present our next guest. Her name is Connie Galli, and she's from TSB Sales. And she's really focused in the world of the mail order catalogs and kind of the old school model, if you don't mind me saying. But it's this area that not enough people consider, because I don't think a lot of people really understand it. And she's here to really educate us. So thank you so much for your time, Connie.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm excited because I think there's a huge world out there that not a lot of people really can grasp. Can you give me a little bit as far as an introduction to the world of catalogs and mail order sales?
A lot of people think that catalogs are gone away, what with Amazon, etc. But there are a demographic that still like to flip through that paper catalog. They like to keep it around. They like to look at it, etc. And catalogs are, a lot of the catalogs I deal with are for an older demographic with aids for daily living. They're not up to speed on Google or the internet or Amazon, actually, and they want to see it. So, but every mail order catalog does also now, they were very late into the game, have their own website. Mm-hmm. So I think people think that's a real niche market. It is. But it's faster to get into than retail in a lot of instances, okay? And easier to get into than retail in a lot of instances, because they are always looking for new. I get asked a million times a week, what's new? They put out sometimes one catalog a month, whereas retail, unless you're Revlon, they really don't want to know what's new, or Lysol or whatever that kind of thing. So they're much more open to being presented new products.
Excellent. And what are some of the biggest mistakes that companies make when selling through catalogs?
A company or my company?
A company.
A company, because we've all had some dogs, but a company, and I'll give you a little example. I went to a show last year, met somebody that had a wonderful product for breaking car windows. It was small in case anything happened. You could get out of the car. She overpriced it. It's everybody's baby. Mm-hmm. I know that you think it's worth $1 million, but people go out there and they kind of overprice. They don't understand that you can't amortize your molds over the first run. Okay, you have to have a perceived good market value. I told her that. She turned me away as a rep, and directly after that met two of my customers who said, "You're out of your mind. That's too high." So she came back to me 6 months later, but we missed the season. Not listening to a rep to tell you that. It is a mistake.
It's always a mistake to not listen to good advice, but it's very hard to tell what's good advice, especially when you're so close to it. Yeah.
Exactly, and you're afraid you don't know me, I don't know you, and that kind of thing. I do offer always, and I would suggest anybody that's working with anyone new, a rep especially, they get references. I have great references from my vendors and my customers too.
And that's what really sets somebody apart, that does know the business and really performs. What are some of the benefits of selling through these catalogs that not a lot of people really understand?
Well, a lot of people will say, well, I have my item on Amazon. All right, you're getting a hit now and then. They have to find you. They have to find you on Amazon. If you're not immediately an apparent, like guitars, I see guitar in the background there, guitars. If it's some strange little object, and I deal with inventors all the time, that you've developed, they're going to find you. Right. And so they're tooting along. In a catalog, you get a space that is there until that catalog goes out of circulation, and they're going to see you. And that's how you can sometimes jump from being not known to a known quantity.
That's a great. I don't think a lot of people realize that catalogs really are a form of advertising.
Marketing, advertising, free advertising.
Yeah,
free advertising.
And that's a great point. One of our members had a really good question. Should I sell my product through catalogs when I'm already selling well online?
I think that leads into the last question. If you're selling online, the one thing people do make a mistake, everybody goes to Amazon, okay? And you compress the price, They don't hold maps sometimes unless you are the one selling. If you give it to them to sell, they're not going to keep map all the time. And then you go to try to get into other places, they go, well, Amazon's got it for $4.99. I can't sell for $8.99. And then the vendor will say, but they have to pay shipping, and I say, and my customers have to pay shipping. So I think it goes back to getting out there, getting known. And if you are going to start with Amazon, and everybody does, and that's okay, make sure you don't undercut it so badly that you cannot be competitive in another market.
That's a phenomenal piece of advice. I think a lot of people really kind of squeeze their margins up front.
They squeeze their margins down.
Yeah,
and they make money
because they want to increase those sales, but when they try to expand, it's very difficult. Yeah,
it's difficult because buyers are very astute today. The first thing they do, they're going to Google that product that I am sitting in front of them with. Now, a lot of times the vendor I'll call them back and say, you have to increase your price on your website or on Amazon. It's the only way I can sell you. And then they'll do it if they want the process to go forward.
That's a phenomenal piece of advice. I thank you. If I'm selling, through a catalog, would they restrict me from selling my product elsewhere?
No, as long as you don't undercut them. No.
Okay.
No.
So that's the biggest concern, but there's no restrictions on the back end.
No restrictions.
Okay, I think that's a question that a lot of people have and a concern. But how is the catalog business changing, and how are they adapting?
Oh, well, again, they're changing because they've decided they all have to have websites. They have to have their own. They are changing. For instance, one corporation just bought a huge customer. I thought it would have been the other way around. But a large customer of mine doesn't have children to leave the business to, and another corporation bought them. So you may see 5 or 6 big players with 12 catalogs under them. So it's not like I'm going to, 12 different catalog groups. Now I can go to one and hit 5 or 6 catalogs. So there is consolidation in the industry. Absolutely.
It's interesting, and a lot of the catalog companies here. How many catalogs are we talking about? What's their audience? How big is the reach?
The reach is huge. We're talking the audience for somebody like Hammaker, upscale, 55 plus. The reach for an Amerimark or a Dr. Leonard's, I mean, some of those ages can get up to 80, 78, 80 years old. They do have a good reach. They do have customers that don't generally go around and poke around and look for things cheaper somewhere else. They're loyal customers. They have loyalty programs too. They have consolidated in recent years. But if somebody Googled online, they could probably find 1,000 catalogs still doing business in the United States. Might not be everything you need. It might be apparel, it might be shoes, but there are still a lot of catalogs. And my postman hates me at Christmas. I'm in the industry and he struggles up my driveway. The catalogs is high every year, around Christmas especially. So there's plenty of catalogs you can still call on.
That's great. And as far as this market, it seems like this is an untapped market that a lot of product companies should explore. What kind of products do best in this category, and what kind of numbers can you expect as far as sales?
Solutions to problems do fantastic in every catalog. If it's a solution to a problem and they can see it's a real solution, also aids for daily living, because again, the demographics of the country are getting older. If I need a sock puller on her, or a stretcher, or some kind of stretcher to help my arms and legs, or a pillow to position me in bed, they do very well. The catalogs, there's 2 majors. They're huge, and Starcrest and LTD, they're huge. Other than that, the catalogs, because they do just-in-time inventory buying, they do not have the warehouse space. Right. They are going to start with if you say, my case pack is 24, I'm going to go to them and say, you have to take at least 4 case packs or 3 case packs. Once it hits, though, and if it's a good seller, it can go on for years. The life cycle is a long time in catalogs. There are a couple catalogs that could take 1,000 at a time, or take it FOB China, and so they're few and far between. But you can get a good, nice, steady seller while you're still in the market looking at other venues. You can get your money. You can start getting some money for your product through catalogs while you're poking into retail or poking into other places.
So it seems like a really good way to kind of spread your net a little bit wider, and really get that base, because I think a lot of people, they really bet on that one horse, and it's dangerous. I mean, hey, I shop at Target all the time, Walmart, but there are small inventors and vendors who have gone under because the requirements are extremely onerous sometimes. And if it doesn't sell, you take it back. And I always say, don't go into a big venue, even a QVC or HSN, unless you have a place to put the inventory if it should come back to you. Now, what are some of the mistakes that you see a lot of people making when they're first coming out with their product? Let's say you're working with a newer inventor that's, proven that the product is gonna sell, but they're looking to scale, let's say through independent retail. What kind of mistakes do they make initially when bringing that product to market?
A lot of times I notice it's with packaging. We're working with people now. We actually have to do that even as sales rep to help them with their marketing, because especially if you're on shelf. If you're on shelf, you got 3 seconds, it's been proven, to catch a consumer's eye. You have to call out what it does in bullet points, boom, boom, boom. You have to have a UPC. They don't have product liability insurance. You have to have product, and it's not that expensive if it's not an ingestible. Must have product liability insurance. The catalogs have it, they expect you to have it. I think they don't. The biggest problem is not having all your ducks in a row, or not really understanding the market, and that's where you pull on a specialist. We work on commission. We don't cost a penny, we pay for ourselves. So you call on a specialist if you are not sure and don't want to pay thousands and thousands of marketing dollars. We can tell you what you need on the packaging. We can tell you it works and doesn't.
And from that real world perspective, what have you found is the best piece of advice that you can give somebody, so that they can be successful if they're launching a new product, this year? What can they do to really stand out, either on shelf or on the page in one of the catalogs?
Do your homework. I see a million new inventions that are exactly like something else. They didn't do their homework. It's like something else out there on the market. Do your homework. Look around to see if anybody has something similar to you. If it's a good product, start the patent process, because things get knocked off all the time. There are knockoff artists out there. That's all they do. And we've had the experience ourselves on one of our best sellers. It was an overseas company. They didn't know to patent it. It was a fabulous seller, got knocked off. And that hurts for everybody. It hurts everybody. So make sure if you have a product that's patentable, you start at least the patent going. Do your homework to make sure it's not a Me Too product, and do not overprice it. Be realistic in the pricing. We know that you have a mold that costs you $15,000 or $30,000, but you can't get all your money back at one time. You have to be in it for the long run.
And if I can ask one follow-up, what is realistic margins, that somebody should be setting?
That's a good question. Okay, if you're dealing with catalogs, they ask for, it's creeping up, but it's a 60-point margin, which means take your suggested retail, divide it by 2.5. That's the wholesale they're going to be working at. Now, we can work with you. Some of them have like 2% for defectives or 1% for advertising. We can work with you and kind of work those numbers. If you're working with a retailer, basically it's called a keystone markup. Your wholesale divided by 2, they'll take it. Now, retailers expect you to pay freight. The bigger ones do, at least. They expect you to pay freight. The catalogers do not. They pay freight. So it's 50 points, 60 points. If you're going through a distributor, that distributor has to make 30 points before he resells it, because he's taking all the risk. So, there are margins. The catalog margin, since we're really focusing on them, is a 60-point margin. They pay freight. And to get 60 points, the retail divided by 2.5.
Okay. And is there any other things on the back end that you've seen as far as your negotiations? Because I know you have so much experience in this area. You mentioned marketing dollars, advertising dollars. I know from our experience that that is a factor in retail. What have you seen on your end?
Very, very little. They'll ask for a lot of catalogs will say, "Will you do a $250 ad fee?" We can say no. That's yours. But all of them will say, "Well, we're going to take 1% off for defectives because we don't return them." And we tell anybody you cannot return the product. So if you take 1,000 pieces, their 1,000 pieces are yours. So they will ask for a defective allowance. They will ask sometimes for 2% advertising. Sometimes they'll ask for 2%, 10, net 30, or net 45 if you want your money faster. You can put it very minimal. The maximum is like 5%. And again, we try to put that into the price. So we help the people with their pricing, putting commission in and anything the catalogs may need. And we really do help them price their product if they need that.
Okay. Excellent. I think that perspective alone to really set your price with the expectation of scaling through these different channels, that's invaluable advice. So thank you so much for your time.
It's the first thing you have to look at. I'll send people away and go, sharpen your pencil. It doesn't pay you if, like one person was very honest and said, now I'm cutting into my cost, not my margin, my cost. I'm bringing this from China, and now you're cutting into my cost. Well, we can't do it. You're not working to make nothing. I'm not working to make nothing.
Right.
So, you know, let's see in a year from now, or maybe if you can get it out there, there's some economy of scale and you can push back on China, get a better price, or push back on your manufacturer, get a better price. We'll try again if it's a good product, but we don't want you to lose money. It's pointless. No.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really value the advice.
I appreciate it. Hopefully we'll meet you when I'm down in Sanford soon at a facility we have down there.
Excellent. I hope so.
I appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.